Chapter 1. Victor Frankenstein could see the castle from the window of his cell. Perched on the peak of one of the mountains that surrounded the small town of Innsbruck, it dominated the skyline and was visible for miles around. Even in this stinking prison cell where Frankenstein had been incarcerated for the last 3 days, it was possible for him to see the majestic building that he had called home for all but 6 of his 38 years. It had been the residence of his family for 3 generations. When his father had died, Victor himself had become master of the place and also recipient of the family fortune. He had become the new Patron Frankenstein, the master of all he surveyed. Such wealth had enabled him to pursue his dreams and ambitions with a ferocity that others had found intimidating. He kept his gaze fixed on the gaunt edifice of the castle, his mind filled with sobering thoughts. How he wished he were there now, instead of shut up inside this reeking room that was less than 12 feet square, with nothing inside it except some straw strewn haphazardly on the dirty stone floor, and a crude wooden bed. Frankenstein scratched at his forearm and glanced irritably at it. He was convinced that the filthy mattress he had been forced to sleep on had fleas in it. Just the thought disgusted him, and he ran a hand through his hair, rubbing and shaking his head as if to dislodge any more of the tiny parasites that might be lurking there. He turned away from the window now and wandered over to the heavy metal door on the far side of the cell. He was a tall man, and it took him just 2 strides to cross the room. There was a barred window in the door, little more than an observation slot, in fact, and Frankenstein peered through it now, looking along the corridor that stretched away from his cell and the others like it. The flag-stoned walkway led to an office, then beyond to another large door, and then to the courtyard of the prison. Beyond that lay freedom. It was such a short journey, but it might as well have been 1,000,000 miles. Freedom. The word seemed redundant and worthless to Frankenstein, for he was sure that he would never again know that particular joy. He would never be able to return to his castle, and, above all, he would never be able to continue with his experiments. He took a deep breath, wincing slightly as he inhaled the rancid odor of the prison. From one of the other cells he could hear the low muttering and grumbling of another prisoner. A common criminal, he thought, not a man of learning like himself. He didn't belong here. He had no place here among scum like this. Thieves, robbers, rapists, and drunkards, the dregs of humanity. Baron Victor Frankenstein was a man of wit, intelligence, determination, and ambition, but it was because of his all-consuming drive that he now waited in this cell. The fools who had placed him here could never understand the way his mind worked. They could never hope to fathom or comprehend his goals, not with their small, closed, and uneducated minds. He felt he should pity them for their lack of knowledge and their apparent insistence on ignoring the kind of secrets that he had striven to unlock. But it wasn't pity that he felt. It was hatred. He hated them because their inability to understand him and what he had worked for had caused them not only to place him in this stinking cell, but also to condemn him to death. Frankenstein sat down wearily on the wooden bed, his head in his hands. Death. The word reverberated inside his mind. In 2 days' time he would be dead, executed by the guillotine that was being erected in the courtyard outside. Even in this most dire of situations he managed a smile, because the irony of his position was apparent to him more than anyone. He, the man who had conquered death, was now facing an end to his own life. Instead of lauding and praising what he had done, the small-minded, ignorant fools who called themselves judges and jurors had sought to condemn him because they were too stupid to see beyond the casualties that